I'm
Okay.
starting.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma.
Okay, talk about I started the recording. It's fine. So, any questions so far? Okay. Anyway, there'll be time for Q&A. So, the next competency I want to talk about is motivation. So, you have to be motivated because if you are not, it will show whether or not you say it or not. So, do not work only for a salary, right? Salary is very important, but you also need to find a way to, you know, enjoy what you are doing. So that motivation is very important. You need to learn how to motivate yourself from within. You need to learn to be your own biggest cheerleader. You may not always have someone, you may not always have a manager or a superior, telling you well done for a job well done, you know. It doesn't mean they don't appreciate it, but it may be that their mind is somewhere else, or it may just be their own style. Does that mean you'll be discouraged or depressed? Of course not. And we all know the famous, I don't know if you've heard this before, but I heard it growing up and I think it's still very relevant about this agama lizard or lizards in general. They nod, they're always nodding. And the gist then was that, oh, when the lizard, falls from a maybe a wall or something, it looks around and it's very fine, nothing happened to it, and it nods his head like, oh, I did a good job, you know. So that's a way to think of it. You need to learn that self-motivation. You have to be motivated from within. It's very key. Another one is commitment. So how would I want to define commitment? Commitment in this regard for me would be, showing up, and not only showing up, you are doing your best. It's very unfortunate if you take a job just for taking a job's sake and you don't try to put in your best. Excellence is very key. It would always speak for you. So try as much as possible to do an excellent work all the time, even when nobody is watching. It's very important. Another one I'll talk about would be creativity, especially for this career that you are all looking to do, which has to do with data science. Creativity is very important. So you may have heard Blessing or one of the other instructors say it, I believe so, that it's not it's not just a science, it's also an art. So two people may see the same data set, but their interpretation may be slightly different, you know. So again, creativity, you can get it from, reading far and wide and trying to improve yourself. Another one I want to talk about, which I will not go into details because it's expected. I believe that for you to be here, you are an analytical person, but it's very important to be able to, apply logic to things. And then foresight. Foresight in this sense has to do with anticipating things. So before you look at, whatever work you're doing, always ask yourself, okay, is this the best way to have done it? How else can I do it? And even if I go to meet my manager or my superior with this work, what are the likely questions that I'm going to be asked? It's very important. Always have that foresight to say, okay, oh, what can I be asked and what can it be about? Then you have to be a leader wherever you are. You have to be a leader. You have to be able to take initiative. And teamwork is actually part of leadership, because being able to even work in a team, having that good dynamics, you definitely need some people who are emotionally, I'll say mature. So leadership is very key. Of course, I've talked about emotional maturity as well. So that emotional maturity or emotional intelligence is very key. You have you have to know when to, back off when an argument is not going the way you want and things like that. And it's communication skills too cannot be overemphasized, right? So all those things are very important in terms of, trying to build competencies. So the next thing I want to talk about, so I've talked about in general, right? I've talked about competencies in general, which I believe everybody should have. So I'll call this one the basic competencies. But you also have the professional competencies, which has to do with the job itself that you are doing, so which is now your functional competencies. So if you know, as a data scientist, you have to be able to tell stories with data, right? So if as of today you do not know how to tell stories with data, you know that you are lacking in that competency. You need to go and find a way to build it, right? You need to know how to go about that. If as a data scientist, you also need to have good presentation skills, which is another reason why you have those projects. But at some point, I want to believe that you will start presenting those things that you are doing. It's very important to be able to present, to be able to, say what you have done verbally. Now, a lot of the great presenters in the world, they don't necessarily need to have slides in front of them to talk. Or you see sometimes, I don't know if you've ever, gone for anything where the person is reading word for word from the slides. I mean, I ask myself, why bother when I can read it myself? Why did I come here for you to be reading the same thing that I can read? Those things are supposed to act as, a guide, right? So if you are one of those who, if you have to prepare a presentation, you go out there and you start reading slide by slide, please, you need to change. It's not very professional. Always have your own key points. Okay, if I see this line, what do I want to say, from this line? What is this line about? What do I want to say about it? So just to touch base with you guys. So far, hope I'm not yarning dust. Hope what I'm saying is making sense to you. You can just unmute yourself and let me know. And if you have any question at this point, please feel free to ask before we move on. We continue.
Yes, ma, what you're saying is like, it's not dust, it's not you yarning dust.
Please don't patronize me. Oh. but it's fine. It's fine. So any questions so far? Any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. And the question doesn't have to relate directly to what I'm talking about in terms of competencies. It can also be in terms of, career in general. At least I have over 13 years of work experience. So I want to believe I'm qualified to answer some questions about career you may have. Okay. So going on, in terms of competencies, so you also have what you call the core competencies. And in terms of the core competencies, again, they are related to those functional or technical competencies I talked about, which are the things that, based on your own role, you need to know and be able to do. And those things too are not cast in stone, right? So, for example, an entry-level person, in terms of the functional competencies that are required, is clearly different from when maybe you become a team lead or a supervisor or a manager or a director, right? The competencies required, even in terms of both the functional and even the I'll say leadership or the business, generic competencies, it varies. So also know that, so the level that you are operating at an entry level, it doesn't mean that that's the level you are going to be operating when you're a supervisor. But guess what? You may be entry level and you're already operating at a level that is like maybe a team lead. People are going to see that and appreciate it, and that can be a reason for a promotion. So sometimes you don't get promoted because you can do your job very well. Sometimes it's those competencies that you've been able, beyond the functional one now, I'm talking about competencies in general. It's all those competencies you've been able to show, like the ones we talked about, adaptability, being willing to take a job that, you know, nobody wants to do, not being asked or waiting for someone to ask you to do a task, you know, going above or beyond what is expected of you. It doesn't mean that, you know, you don't know. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you are doing, or it doesn't mean that, you know, sometimes we just want to just be in our own little corner. But the truth is, if you want to do career, right, it's very important to know all these things, and then you'll be able to excel, in quotes, I'll put it that way. So just try and imagine in terms of a flower, a flower that has, you know, the core, the middle, and then it has its petals, you know, and then try and look at it in terms of, okay, what are those petals? The skills that you already have and the skills that you can build that are required for your job. You always need to be aware of what skills. And remember that in today's world, and you know that because of even the way things change at the speed of lightning, you know. So what was a key competency for a data scientist, you know, maybe yesterday may not necessarily be what it will be tomorrow. So you have to keep abreast of what's going on in the industry that you're playing in. Is very key, it's very important. Even in terms of, you know, so that's one part, the skills. But if you know, if you have the skills, right, back it up with knowledge, which is what I'm saying. You need to be able to read far and wide. Reading doesn't stop. Honestly, it doesn't. At least I was part of the industry session where we had the people from Airtel come in. And you heard what they said, how they, you know, keep on improving themselves and all that. So it's not, getting a job is not the destination. It's actually is a journey. And look at your career in totality. Always look at it in totality, and always anticipate, okay, where do I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do I want to be in the next 10 years? Things like that. It doesn't mean that you put pressure on yourself or you set unrealistic goals. But the truth is, if you don't set goals for yourself, anywhere the wind blows, you go with it. So in terms of building your knowledge, always ensure that, you know, you are improving yourself, and not only in terms of your technical skills required of you, but also in terms of other skills that are required of you. Learn things. If you think you have, you know, an area of improvement in terms of emotional intelligence, get things that will help you improve your emotional intelligence. Also, if you think, oh, okay, you need to improve your communication skills, see how you can improve it. Even though I know that there are some people who say, oh, why don't you, you know, amplify, you know, your strengths, and then try and cover up your what's it called now, your areas of, I'll just use this word, deficiencies in quotes. People say that, but the truth is, what if at that point in time, what is required of you, right? You would need to tap into something that unfortunately is around your deficient area. So why don't you even try at the minimum to even try and bring it up to speed? So it's very important. I'm talking about knowledge. Then your values as a person is very important. I cannot overemphasize that. Your values are personal to you. However, they show in your attitude to work, they show in your behavior, they show in your engagement with others. All those things come into play. Then also in terms of your self-image, how do you see yourself? It's very key. You have to be very confident. You know, it doesn't mean that you've put in the work, you have improved yourself, you have the knowledge, you have the right values, right? But if you do not complement it with a good self-image, then definitely you will struggle in that regard. So always see how you can also, you know, project a positive, you know, self-image. It's very key. Okay. So that in terms of self-image. Another one would be in terms of, I would say, your traits, right? What are those traits that, you know, you can gain or you already have? And then what are the things that drives you as an individual? What are those your motivations? All those things, you always have to have them at the back of your mind. Now, it's not only about it's not only about the functional. Always remember that. Remember I said at the beginning that you can know the work. That's why you've even been given the job in the first place. But in carrying out the job, how do you demonstrate, the right competencies? How do you show that, you can be relied upon? How do you show that you are dependable? How do you show that, you are the one that should be given the next level if there's a next level? Maybe you do not know, but the truth is, in every career or in every organization, at least to the best of my knowledge till today, it is a pyramid structure. And by a pyramid structure, if you know what a pyramid is, I believe you do. But if peradventure you don't know, please go and look at what a pyramid looks like. You see that it's always very wide at the base, and as it goes up, it narrows until it gets to the top, which is why you can only have one CEO and not multiple CEOs, even though these days people do the whole co-founder, co-CEO and the rest. But the truth is, there's still only one person that most times takes some decisions that can make or mar the organization. So because it's a pyramid structure in an organization, chances are when you are starting out, everybody is on the same level in terms of functional capabilities. But as you go up, if it's depending on how large again the organization is, how far you go sometimes is not dependent on how knowledgeable you are about the job itself, but it's all these other things that I've been talking about, so it's beyond your skills. It's also those behaviors, those attitudes, those traits that you exhibit. So never forget that. It doesn't mean that you are perfect, because there's nobody that is perfect. But you need to be a work in progress, as against, oh, I have arrived at my destination. You should never be afraid of feedback, but you should also not be blind to the feedback. So if somebody comes to give you feedback, it shouldn't sound strange to you. You should have an idea of, oh, okay, yes, this is actually true and I'm working on it. You understand? So it's very important that you know yourself. There's something I like to say: man, know thyself, and to thyself be true. It's very, very key. Know yourself, know what you're capable of, know how you can do things better, know what it is that you need to build up on, and all of that. It's very, very, very important. I cannot overemphasize it. So in terms of your attitudes, in terms of your values, in terms of your self-image, all those things, you need to always ask yourself, okay, how am I performing in this area? How am I performing in this regard? Remember the iceberg. So the scientific definition would be something like, oh, an iceberg has just 1/9 of its volume above water, and then the rest remains beneath the surface. So 1/9, at least you guys are all analytic people, so you know what 1/9 means. So that's 1/9, right? So that means 8/9 of it is under, and those are the things that really count at the end of the day. Your knowledge and skills is that 1/9, while your attitude, the traits that you exhibit, the way you do things, your thinking, also your self-image, your own confidence. And again, there's another one: organizational fit. Sometimes you may find yourself in a place where, the way things are done does not really align with the way you would like things to be. It doesn't mean that you immediately leave the place, but you see how you can work around it. But if it's really an issue for you, then that is the time to start looking for somewhere else. So sometimes organizational fit can also make somebody not perform very well. But it's a total package in terms of the attitudes, the traits, the style, the self-image, and all that. Those are what really count at the end of the day, how you are able to, demonstrate those generic competencies that show that complements your functional competencies. It's very, very key. I don't know how else or how more I can, emphasize it. So always think of it. Your knowledge, you have to keep working on that. The skills, of course, non-negotiable. But again, your self-image, also how people see you, how you also view yourself, and even in terms of, the traits that you exhibit. Some of those traits, I'll say, okay, are you flexible, which is the same as being adaptable? Are you a good listener? Listening skills are very important in the workplace. Are you able to build trust? Do people look up to you? And in terms of building trust, it doesn't mean that you have to be at a senior level to be able to build trust, And even in terms, are you able to inspire people? Are you able to engage? What's your mindset like? All those things are very important. And those are some of the things that interviewers try to look out for when, during the interview process. They want to know, okay, are you able to work in a team and all that? Especially as you move on in your career, it's very important. There's nobody that is perfect. Everybody is work in progress, but your own development is always in your hands. It's never in the hands of the organization where you work. It's never there. So always know how to identify and prioritize those skills, the knowledge, and also the personal attributes that you require to do your job well. And again, remember I said it changes depending on the level you are at. So if I want to use another example, if you don't have anybody reporting to you, you are called like a managed self. That means you are managing yourself. But by the time you become like a team lead or a manager, you become a manage others, right? So that means you are how effective you are to a large extent will be dependent on how you're able to leverage, your team. So how much work you're able to do is not dependent on how you as an individual you are working, but on how you're able to leverage the strength, harness the strength in your team to get job done. So you see, it's more work as you go on in your career, but definitely it helps. So which is why from today, as you start your career, you need to already think of how you are going to, have a game plan. Always have a game plan. Nothing, to the best of my knowledge, happens by chance. Yes, there's the God factor. I don't deny that. There's a God factor. But they say, how do they say it again? Something around preparation and opportunity. Something around, opportunity meets preparation, So if the opportunity comes and you're not prepared, then unfortunately you may miss out. It could also be that you are prepared. The opportunity may not come at the time you want it, but it doesn't mean that you also lose hope. But you have to always have a game plan so that you can achieve what you need to achieve in terms of your career. So always think of that. At what level am I performing in my career? To move to the next level, what level do I need to be operating in? So that way you can excel. So I think I would end there. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Ibade. It was such a wonderful session. Honestly, a lot of us have actually learned a lot today, and I'm hoping that our trainees were able to take down notes, because were very, very important and very, very salient points that you guys would need in the workplace. So let's open. We're going to open it now for questions. If you have any questions now, and of course, it doesn't necessarily have to do with what she spoke about, but general questions. Please, this is the time now to ask and ask away. So, do we have any questions?
Well, good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this speech you gave to us, this advice. I really appreciate. Well, regardless, I just have one question. It's not entirely what you said, but some challenges I've been experiencing. So I've been trying to apply for a couple of jobs, data analyst jobs, like seeing myself out of this program and getting myself some experience that's going to last me a lifetime. And most of these jobs really require experience. Like you're going to find just a handful of junior data analyst roles. So would you advise like retouch our CVs and I don't know, put some form of experience and would I say lie about our experience to land these jobs or get to the interview stage, or do you think it's just better we leave it at what we are now because we don't have any reasonable amount of experience? Okay, I'm talking for myself. I don't have any reasonable amount of experience time-wise. So what do you think, ma'am, for that question?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Again, remember one of the things I said, I talked about values. So even though I'll be talking based on my values, right? Which so yes, I'll be talking based on my values. So I wouldn't advise you to lie on your CV, even if you are not found out, right? But would you be happy with yourself? Or even if you're happy with yourself for some strange reason, I believe anything you get fraudulently, right? It also shows you have an integrity issue. That's for me personally. Again, my but however, there are always smart ways around this thing. So one of the smart ways that I can think of right now is in terms of what projects have you been involved in, if you've been involved in projects, which is why when you join this Octave Analytics graduate program, we told you for the period of this program, you are our staff because we are taking you through industry experience and all that, right? So even though we are not paying you, it's an internship. And is internship a bad thing? Definitely not. If you had any internship from your time in industrial attachment, it is experience, right? NYC is experience. The unfortunate thing is if maybe they were in diverse, areas and there's no alignment, then it may be an issue to an extent. But if, for example, as an IT person, you were doing something around data, and then NYC, you got a job, even if it was a teaching job, but if you're able to do some freelance data stuff, then it's also experience plus this one that you're doing. But I will not deny the fact that it's an issue, the whole wanting years of experience, that a lot of companies want. A lot of companies don't want to go through the stress of training people, which is the challenge that a lot of them, they don't want to go through that stress. They want people who will just come today and know what to do and start working. But you have to give people the opportunity, you have to give people the chance. So I don't think you should lose hope. I think you can find ways to tailor your CV more to show that you have some experience, even if it means, it's freelance or, it's project based. Even if you were not paid for it, it doesn't really matter, right? If it's the right experience, you'll be called for interview. I don't know if I've answered your question. Hubert.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, no, not Hubert, it's Henry.
I'm
Actually
sorry.
does.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. One more thing. One more question. So somehow, some way, if eventually we get to the interview stage and as starters in this industry or this field, we get an opportunity to, okay, if we are asked how much, because I've actually come across an interviewer where I was asked how much I'm expecting, or at that point I was just dumbfounded, and the only thing I could muster was anything. And at the end of the day, when I went through the internet,
Hello?
hello ma, can you hear me ma?
Okay, I lost you a bit, but I can hear you now. You said when you went through the
Okay.
internet, what happened?
Yeah, I went through the internet and someone recommended that whenever you're being asked that kind of question, you should have a specific range. So I don't know, since you have some form of experience interviewing a couple of people, do you think it's ideal to give a specific range when asked how much you're expecting from that job position or that job role, or how do you go about that kind of scenario? Thank you, man.
So I'm assuming you have done your homework. I'm assuming you've done your homework in terms of, having an idea of what that company, pays for that level or that role that you're going for. That's a good way to start. You can already have done that homework before then, you know, specifically for the company as against checking, oh, what's the salary average for this role, because even within the same industry you may have different companies depending on maybe their maturity level in terms of how long they've been. They may pay different things. If you know someone in that company and you can ask, it helps. But if you do not have, you can also say, okay, this is the range you are looking for. Of course, you have also calculated your living expenses and all that, and then you say, however, after you say this is the range you're expecting, however, you are open to negotiation. Do you understand? So bottom line, making them know that it's not cast in stone. This is the range you're looking for, but it is open to negotiation. Have I answered your question?
Yes, man, you have. Thank you very much, man.
You're welcome. Does any other person have a question? Okay. So since you don't have a question, me, I will ask you my own question. So I'll start with maybe Tamuna. Tamuna, tell me one thing you took from the whole plenty grammar book.
Okay. One thing I took from what you said is about that the professional skills is just like the 1/9 of the iceberg. Then the competencies and other soft skills, framework, and the presentation skills and every other thing is the other personality traits and all is the other 8/9 of the iceberg. So we should improve on that too.
Okay, so tell me, in your own, where do you see for yourself personally, what do you think you need to do in that regard?
Okay, I think maybe I should work on my communication and presentation skills. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Does any other person want to speak, or you want me to call you? Okay, Richard.
All right. Actually, I was about to speak. So one thing I've learned from the lecture today is your technical skill will get you to the door, but your soft skill will keep you on the table. So we should work more on our soft skills. Like as I use the pyramid example, at the baseline, anybody can enter into the industry, but your soft skill gets to the executive level. So it's actually more important to work on our soft skills. That's the key thing I learned from the lecture. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, so it's not like it's more important, but it's equally as important. It's not that it's more, it's equally as important. But I want to ask you a question, Richard, based on that. So, for you, how would you say, do you agree with this? Because again, I won't say my opinion is, but did you know about this before now? And what have you been doing to, get yourself to the table?
Yeah.
Richard, the question is for you.
They don't really work with, they don't work in team like network alone. And that's one of the things that they don't really get promoted based on what I've seen in the industry. So I think I will actually agree with that.
Okay. The network is also clear,
So,
but I got what you said. So I'll take
do
just
you
one
want
more.
to come? Okay. Okay,
Okay,
but I wanted to ask a question initially. So I can just I don't know.
Yes, go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, it's more about reporting line and organization structure. Like, for example,
I can't hear you anymore.
structure.
What did you say?
Is it better now?
It's a little better. Go ahead.
Okay, I think my question is relating to reporting line and structure in the organization. So, for example, you're operating a flat structure, maybe like in the bank. So I'll ask my question using an example. So maybe during your analysis now, you discover an insight that will be profitable to the company you are working for. And it will bring more profit to the company in that way. But you have to report to your team lead the idea to the management. So when you told your team lead, he didn't actually agree with you. Like maybe he's not saying what you're saying from your perspective, or you've not done the research in that perspective. So he just brush your idea down the drain. So will you encourage taking the idea to the management level, or just forget about the idea? Say you're reporting, your team lead is not accepting your idea.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I get your question. Thank you very much. So the truth is, this sort of situations would always happen in organizations. That's the truth. Sometimes it may even be that, the person, for some political reasons or something, the person wants to kill it. It's possible. Now, I would also not advise. So what I'm going to say to you is not a yes. It's not going to be a straightforward yes or no. In a lot of situations in this world, it's neither black nor white. There's a lot of gray areas, and there's a lot of, situation specific, responses to things. So it's also good to know the kind of organization. If it's a kind of organization where management already operates an open door policy, it may not really be an issue per se. But so it's also good to know the organization where you are, know the dynamics of the organization where you are. It's very important because different places. If it's an organization where the management, operates an open door policy, it's not an issue, but it's not how you approach it. For example, you already have friends among management. Is there a way to make it as if you are not going above your boss? So all those things come into play. So for example, there was also something that when I was thinking, okay, should I talk about competency today or should I talk about networking? I wasn't really sure which one I should talk about. Because sometimes we feel that, work is work, play is play, they should be different. But imagine if that your boss's boss, in quotes, you people have a rapport that goes beyond work, then it's easier to even just drop it as in an offhanded way. It's not like, you're going to do one presentation to the person, and then the person is, saying, yes, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Because one thing with organizations, especially depending on how large they are, you always have to be able to socialize your idea. It may also be that the reason why your team lead is not buying it is because you haven't presented it in the way that he would understand it. So it's a balancing act. There's no one size fits all to it. You need to understand the organization. You need to understand the dynamics at play. You need to see if there are other people who maybe you can have their ear. And it's not like you are doing it like you are, going above your boss, because you also do not want to be seen as that kind of person. But you have to find a way to say, okay, I think this thing is really important. Maybe you give it a couple of days or weeks, sleep over it, think of, okay, what's the best way to approach this? Can I present it as, a question instead of a suggestion? Maybe that may just be the answer sometimes. You know how the thing, no, but you say, but I'm thinking of this, but I'm not sure. What do you think about it? Let it now be that it is the person's idea. Sometimes that may be the answer to it. Sometimes it may be that, you need to find another. It may be that you didn't meet the person when the person was in a good mood. Or if the person is still insistent that, no, this thing can't fly. Is it that the person is tired of the organization, or the person doesn't just get it? You need to know the situation. It's very good to always understand the context of things. Then that way, you'll be able to know the right thing to do. So I won't be able to say today, as we speak, whether it's a yes, go above your boss, or no, don't go above your boss. It's situation specific, it's context specific, and there are always ways around it without getting anybody offended. Because that your boss also has friends, right? So you also need to be very careful. But you're also not going to be doing yourself a good if you cover it up or you bury the idea because one person doesn't like the idea. You have to so your persuasive skills are also very important. You need to build on persuasion, which is why it's good to also have rapport with people. Have I answered you? Sorry, I can't give you a yes or no because there's no yes or no. I'll be lying if I tell you there's a yes or a no. Have I answered you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So the last question for the day for me.
Hello, ma.
Yes.
Okay, ma. Permit me to just to speak. Okay, so thank you so much for this session, and so far so good. I really learned a lot, and one of the key things I learned is that we should never get to the point that we think we know it all. That we should always continually, go for knowledge and seek for ways to develop ourselves, and in summary, which means that we should be teachable. And another thing I also learned is that, when you mentioned that, over time we've been told that we should focus on our strengths, but you said something that was very apt. That what if you find yourself in a situation whereby that particular weakness or deficiency is what is required of you. And I think I've seen that played out personally for me, whereas, there are particular things I'm not so good at, and it was what was needed at a particular time. And because I was not able to deliver, I kind of lost out on that. So to that, I would like to ask a question also. So over time, someone has said to me, or I've heard people say that if you're in a workplace, that you have to learn to play politics. I think that was how the person put it. And if we were to look at the way we play politics here in Nigeria, playing politics here in Nigeria is a kind of eye service. So I would like you to, so what's your take on that statement? Or could it be that I misinterpreted what the person is saying, or I just want you to probably, shed more light on that. Thank you.
Okay, so the truth is that it's possible that the person actually meant eye service in like what our politicians do, where they would praise you even when they don't believe it or that, which is very dishonest, right? But it's because it could also mean that the person meant I don't want to even use the word play politics. Wherever in this world, playing politics connotes something negative. But sometimes people look at it more from what we talked about today. What behaviors are you exhibiting, right? Some people are able to exhibit the right behaviors that some other people would interpret as, oh, maybe this person is doing eye service, or maybe the person is playing politics. But it may be that the person has been able to develop themselves to that level, or it may be that based on the person's background or upbringing, they've been able to get to that level. So let me give you another personal example. So I had this colleague, right? I mean, she was also equally good on the job, but if I would say in terms of functional capability, I would say I was a lot better. I'll put it like that. Not because she wasn't smart or anything like that, but, people are different. But there was something that she had that, everybody, you cannot even fault her for it, because she wasn't doing it as, in quotes, eye service or politics. You say it was her nature, but it helped her in the workplace. It could also be that she also amplified it. We also talked about amplifying your strength, then working on your area, your deficiencies. So it could also be that she amplified those traits, which are very needed in the workplace. And what do I mean by those traits? She knew how to engage senior people beyond work. For me, at that point in time, it was very easy for me to just go and only meet you. I could talk to any senior person about work. So it's not like I had any issues with confidence or anything like that. But there was no relation, there was no rapport. And rapport is not built in a day. Rapport is a gradual thing, And this particular lady, what did she even do? We moved into a new office complex that had, a very big cafeteria. Even though there was a gym that was purpose built, but she felt, no, the gym was not her style. And she had these exercise videos. They call them insanity, like really crazy exercise. And she started off like an exercise club in the office with, from that cafeteria. So after work, like 5 p.m., she would have set up everything. And then she would go and tell directors, these are even expatriates, tell them, oh, we do this here, everything, She was very popular. So even when it comes to her appraisal, because she's not doing badly on the job, right? But she has all those other, she's visible. That's what they call it. She was very visible, So because she was very visible, which our politicians, in a way, for you to be a politician, you have to be visible. She was also very visible. And because of that, people knew her. They knew she could take on more responsibilities, even though they were like, oh, she may be a bit inexperienced, but she has the opportunity to develop, to grow. And these are even senior guys giving that sort of positive feedback. If your boss's boss is giving you a positive feedback, definitely it's going to count. Do you understand? It's going to count. So was she playing politics? I don't think she was. Was it eye service? I don't think it was. It's those traits I'm telling you about, those traits that she has developed, those positive behaviors that she's exhibiting. So in today's world, right, work is not work and outside work is, there's some sort of, you can still try and shield a lot of personal things about yourself. But if, for example, somebody invites you for something that is personal in a workplace, don't be that kind of person that never goes for people's function outside the office. Don't be that kind of person. Don't be that kind of person that only talks about work, that doesn't gist outside work, So have I answered your question?
Yes, ma'am. Well understood, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you're welcome. Talk by 2:30.
Is that a last question, ma?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, ma. I must say it was so good hearing you speak to us again. Thank you so much for the session. Okay, just let me say an observation, especially for entry level roles. Maybe I've heard some friends talk about the tasks described in the offer letter is usually probably after maybe a week or a month into the job. They just had, say, 50%, additional 50% of the tax, initially agreed to what you now do. So, I mean, how long should you endure till you speak without having 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 a talk about probably your pay or something? They just keep adding tax, and then I don't know. To what extent should you endure, and then how do you handle such? I don't know. Has it ever happened to you? Have you had any of such experience? And thank you, ma.
I wish I can tell you don't endure, but the truth is I will not be helping you. Remember what we talked about, being adaptable. Now it doesn't mean that you should die in quotes, but it may be that at the time, because business is dynamic, it may be that at the time you took the role, this was what they thought they wanted, but things are fluid, right? And they feel no, this is what is more important. So always, for you personally, have what always see how you can best do your job, but it's also good to know how to prioritize. So there's this quadrant called I don't remember what the quadrant is called now, but you have the urgent and important on the top left quadrant. So a quadrant is 4 boxes together. So you have the top left, which is the urgent and important. That is where you should spend most of your time on. You have the urgent and not important. You have the important but not urgent. And then, of course, the one that is not important and that is not also urgent. It may be that at the time when you were given that job description, a lot of the things were around that not urgent and important. Or it could be that the HR just went to copy and paste from one JD that they saw somewhere, which is not what the people that, wanted the role wanted. Or it may be that they just thought it's called urgent and important matrix, right? You can, or the Eisenhower matrix. So just Google it, you see it, urgent versus important matrix. It's very important. You look at it, always prioritize your task. So look at everything. I'm not saying, don't say no, but if it's unrealistic for you to do everything, you always need to know how to prioritize. Look at the ones that are, and how do you know what to prioritize? The ones that, would benefit the company, maybe in terms of revenues, like increasing sales or reducing costs, is very important. Because why you working in the first place? Why is a business a business? It's to make money, right? It's not a charity. If it was a charity, even though you can run a charity as a business, but because you are working there, the company has bills to pay. Maybe the company also has shareholders. Even if the company doesn't have shareholders, I mean, you want to progress as a business. So always look at it from the perspective of, okay, what's important to this company? And if it is important to this company, how do I prioritize? So if they expect you to do a lot of mundane things as well, then you have to find a way to say, oh, I'm working on XYZ. Can I give you this later? I don't think any manager will say, leave the important one and focus on the non-important one. And again, another thing is, when you're looking at the important one, the first test is what's important to the business. The second test is what is important to your direct boss or your direct manager. Because before you not even think of what is important to you, because why are you doing it in the first place? Is it just because it's on your job description, or is it that it's really, really important? And then you also need to find ways to prioritize. Like I said before, it's very good to prioritize. It's also one of those competencies that you need to have in the workplace. So you may see, when you see some, they'll be like, okay, the urgent and important, you should do it. The not urgent but important, you should plan. That's the quadrant 2. The quadrant 3 is urgent but not important, so you should delegate it. Now you may not be able to delegate because you are entry level. Now find out, is there another time you can do it without compromising on quadrant 1 and 2? Or can you negotiate for a longer time to deliver on the task? But I can tell you from my experience working that, trust me, that JD that was given during interview, except it's aligned to your performance appraisal, most times it was just to bring you into the organization, from my own experience. Have I answered your question?
Very well, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, okay, so I guess there are no more questions, and thank you so much, Ibade, for a wonderful session today. I'm sure everyone has learned one or two things today, and today was just a very, very fantastic session. Of course, we will be leaving very early. I just want to go over a couple of things with you all before we go. First of all, yes, Ibade.
All right, so thank you everyone, and yeah, nice talking to you all again.
Okay, before you leave then, okay, I know you want to leave now, so let's all unmute our mics and just thank you, Bade, for being here with us and sharing her wonderful knowledge with us. Let's unmute our mics and say
Thank you
very
so
much.
much, ma.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much, ma'am.
thank you, Bade. Thank you very much. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, Bade.
Thank you, and you too.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, before you guys go, we'll be leaving in about a couple of minutes. Just a couple of things for you guys to note. So your first things first, your LinkedIn profile. I've been able to go through a couple of profiles, and you guys, I think, well, it's fairly good, but it could be better. So please work on your profiles. I think for Hubert and Daniel, your LinkedIn profiles are very, very cool, very good actually. The reason why I'm saying this is because you know, nowadays I would just put it out there for you because that's what we see nowadays. Even though you send in your CV and you are looking for a job, employers, HR managers still look through your LinkedIn profile. In fact, what most of them do is they go through your posts, see what you've been, posting about, what your interests are, and see if they align with what you discussed with them at the interview stage. So it would be good for you guys to just, tidy up that part and just do what is needful there. Please, it's very, very important. And second of all, we will also be reaching out to some of you, well, basically all of you anyway. We have gotten some resources that would help in your, job search and well, not really job search, because we also believe that with this program, you guys are going to do fantastically well once you guys leave. So we'll be sharing some resources to you later in the week, hopefully tomorrow. Thirdly, your program is going to be ending October 2nd. That should be the final day where we, do the closing, blah, blah, blah. So please just have that in mind, October 2nd. And to prepare you guys for the DASCA exams, we'll be having like a mock exam. I think you can also do that on the DASCA platform. So before you guys write your DASCA exams, you guys will do like 2 mock exams on the DASCA platforms where you get to answer questions and just get a feel of how it looks, how the questions are going to be structured to prepare you guys for that. So we'll be communicating the dates for this as well, but it's definitely going to be before the end of this month. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Emmanuel, and he'll be more than happy to assist you with whatever questions that you have. So yeah, I guess it's 2:40. Thank you very much, guys, for joining and for being a part of this program. And you guys, you have a wonderful day, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Have a wonderful day too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Isha, I think she wants your summary. Not your summary today.
Sorry, who is that?
This is Daniel. I said you didn't do your usual summary today.
Oh,
I was looking for it to spot it actually,
sorry
but
guys,
it's fine.
don't
It's
mind
cool.
me. I guess I was I felt that you guys were already